War Eagle Auburn family, welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we sit together, we talk about things that aren't fun to talk about, but we still get together and we talk about what's going on in the world, the Auburn family spectrum, always heavy on the sports here on this channel, but if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. Thank you for joining us, whether you're watching live or on the replay. We appreciate you hanging out with us for your hard-earned time. Now, for this live stream, I'm sure we're going to be visited, and I've already seen it happen right now, by some of their interesting opposing fans. But we're going to be talking about Auburn falling to Texas A&M in the quarterfinals of the SEC tournament by the score of 67-62. It's frustrating. There was a lot to go around, blame to go around in all kinds of areas on Auburn's side, but you got to give credit where credit is due. Texas A&M is hot right now, and they are moving on in the SEC tournament. So we're going to break down our thoughts, reactions, all that stuff, your comments, your questions, probably derogatory rebuttals as well. We're going to talk about all of that here on this stream. So thank you for joining us. What you can do for us right now is, if you're watching live or on the replay, make sure you smash that like button if you enjoy this type of content. But also make sure you post right now where you're watching from, city, state, international, all that good stuff with a War Eagle. I guess go ahead and do your little Arkansas fans are already coming in, the Woo Pigs and all that kind of stuff. So go ahead and do that if you'd like to. But let us know who's here and who's hanging out with us right now. All right, let's see. War Eagle tough loss, Kevin says. He was very confident. He called into us on our Wednesday night show and was very confident about it. And I'm glad that you were confident, but unfortunately, it didn't work out that way, did it? Wow, that's all Rodney says, but he says War Eagle anyway. It's not anyway. It's always. I'm going to correct you a little bit there, Rodney. It's War Eagle always, not anyway. I still think we are chasing a complete game. Hopefully, we'll find it in the tournament. Texas A&M shot lights out and doesn't happen that often. I still think we can go far in the tournament. Well, that's really where we're at, right? So that's a good way to start off with some of the comments right there. It's kind of where we're at with this. It's a new season at this point. It was a new season when we started the SEC tournament and it quickly ended for us. But there's basically 3 seasons. You know, your regular season, your conference tournament, and your NCAA tournament, if you happen to make that. Auburn obviously is making that, but will likely not get a number 1 seed at this point. And we talked about this in our SEC tournament preview shows, that Auburn could not lose in its first game and maintain a number 1 seed. Now, I could be wrong on that. I highly doubt that that's going to happen now. Baylor losing would have really helped us in that position. We might have been able to get to the semifinals and lose and still make it, but not when you lose in the quarterfinals. Not a great day for Auburn basketball overall. Very proud of the fight that they showed there in the waning minutes to kind of put themselves in position to do something. However, too little, too late is really what the story is today. Neil, I know you are not feeling good right now, buddy. I understand that, and I completely empathize with that, but have a little faith, buddy. Let's wait and see what happens when we get into the first round, who we get seated with. Could be a lot different story there. You had hoped that the road woes that Auburn was having in late season here wouldn't carry over to a neutral site, but they obviously are. Auburn is not a great shooting team. They are a great defensive team, as you saw in this second half, by keeping a Texas A&M team somewhat in check in the second half to where they could mount some type of a comeback. They are very athletic, have great talent, but they do not shoot the ball consistently. Congrats, Piggies. I know some of y'all are waiting on those Arkansas fans to jump in. Actually, they've got to get ready for their game against LSU, which would be a great matchup. Would have loved to have had the opportunity to be a part of that semifinal game, whoever comes out of it, especially if it was Arkansas, but we will not have that. Maybe it happens in the NCAA tournament. We'll find out, right? I think there's a lot of season left for Auburn to have at this point. Linda has got the good vibes going. We can still win the national championship. Obviously, we can. There are plenty of things that need to be cleaned up on this team. One of those being our just awful shooting droughts that occur with us sometimes. Honestly, didn't see this coming today. Well, Yahari, I tried to warn you, buddy. I don't know if I can't remember if you were part of our live streams. I warned you that I thought a loss was coming in the SEC tournament. Now, granted, I thought it would be in the championship game, but came a little bit earlier. So I was never anticipating us winning the SEC tournament, but I did think we would at least win one game. The problem is when you're matched up with a team that is surging, and there's been something to this type of commentary. We've had people suggested here, viewers here on this channel, about the concept of getting hot at the right time, and there is something to that. It's not always the only thing, but Texas A&M right now, you're seeing a lot of shades of Auburn 2019, where they were underestimated. They were good enough, but underestimated heavily, and they just came in and got hot and got on a tear. So that's where Texas A&M is right now. And have they played themselves into the tournament? By the way they're playing, I would say they should, but I don't know if they have to go further to actually make that happen. But you cannot go far in this discussion if you're going to be a reasonable person without giving credit to Buzz Williams and Texas A&M. They had a response every single time Auburn made a move. And anytime they got a streak, a good shooting streak or something like that, they finally kind of capped the bleeding off before it got too bad for them. What we got within 4 points, I think, was the maximum we got within. And so never got into a position where it was a one possession game for them outside of the starting point in the game. Let's see here. Bruce Pearl did say that the first games are always the hardest. There is something to that, yes, because you're in a new place, a new routine. I think people forget that, and again, I know I keep saying this, but we talked about this a lot in our last live streams. There's something to this repetitive nature that happens when you get into conference play. Now, every team's subject to it, so Auburn doesn't have any excuses, but there is something to that when you are a very streaky, routine-oriented team, and you're playing basically not to lose. That can kind of bite you in the butt when you get out of a routine like that. So I think probably a little bit of that played into this as well. Neil, I'm going to disagree with you, man. I don't think that I don't think we can definitively say they peaked then yet. However, I will say that if the trend continues and we go out in first or second round, like you're predicting, then yeah, you can definitely say that. But right now, I'm going to hold reservation on that until we see how the NCAA tournament, works out, if it does work out at all. I have a gut feeling that Texas Tech is going to make a deep NCAA run. Auburn is capable, just got to handle the pressure. I don't know that it's a problem of them not being able to handle pressure. I think it is becoming more and more clear. It is evident as we are just not a great shooting team overall. We've got a few good shooters. Wendell Green, hello. We're not in the game without him. So remember everybody who was fretting about him taking too many of those shots? Aren't you glad that Bruce lets him do that now? We're not even in conversation about this being a 5-point game if it isn't for Wendell Green. So just remember that when you're criticizing one of these players in a game where it doesn't work out in your favor, you might be praising them the next. Just remember that sometimes. Let's see. Why not start like they did for the last 6 minutes of the game? Well, if it was that easy, life with Maine, then we would be out there doing it with them. It's much easier for us to say that here on a show as opposed to being out there in a court. It's a combination of poor performance by Auburn, but also great performance by Texas A&M. And we need to grapple with that. We need to be able to reason that out, that Texas A&M played a really, really good game. Not a great game, like an outstanding, perfect game, but a good game. We will win against the number 15 seed and lose in the round of 32. Wow, a lot of bad vibes here today. What I will say is this. There is a history of 2s losing to 15s that does not sit well with me. So I would be afraid of the history of that happening more often than a 1 and a 16. It finally happened a few years ago, but there is something to that. So maybe be very afraid. Let's see. Corey, I think, is an Arkansas fan. Don't worry, Auburn. Don't follow Auburn much at all, but why not drive when 3 is not falling? A guard play has to be better. So yes, I would agree that Auburn, and that was the common theme you heard on commentators on TV as well. Why were they not getting it to Kessler? Well, the reason is that Texas A&M was guarding that as well. I think that's the thing that's missing here from our conversation between our comments here and stuff like that. People need to wrestle with it. Texas A&M had a great game plan and was ready and was playing with nothing to lose. That's a deadly combination. When you are set up, you have set yourself up in a great way to counter what a team does and put them in a bad position, and you're hot yourself. That's hard to do. And Auburn nearly came back. Probably the score is probably a little less indicative of how close it actually was. It wasn't till the waning minutes here that it kind of became a game. But yeah, so while I agree with you that the guard play does have to be better, there's play to be better all the way around. Free throws. Free throws. 61%. Auburn is 11 of 18 from free throw line. I don't need to say any more. Now, again, if you make all of those, you can't count how that happens in the course of the game, how it switches momentum one way or the other. But we lose by 5 points. We miss 7 of those. It's easy to make 5 of those 7 that we missed. Got to make free throws. Free throws will win and lose games for you. Period. Said, done, and over with. When Pearl ramped up the amount of timeouts to reset and cool things down these last few games, we came out better. When this particular team is cold, they need a timeout so droughts don't run it. But you also have to counter when you use those timeouts, right? It's not as easy as, okay, we're not doing it. We have to use a timeout right now. You only have a certain allotment of those. They're very well versed in when they should and shouldn't use them based on their team. But I will say this, one thing that I think would have, in the point you're trying to make, Stephen, would have been a great thing to do. I'm confused why we weren't trying to exploit the fact that we were in the bonus with 5 minutes left, still down 10 points. You want to talk about slowing things down from a fast, smaller team in Texas A&M that just wants to get it up and down the floor fast and get up in your grill? That's how you get things back under control. That is my critique. Why were we not exploiting? And it's not even as simple as just driving into the lane and getting a foul there. Some of our guys are really good at selling fouls. Zep Jasper, I think there should have been a focus there, and maybe there was, and it just didn't work out. Maybe they knew they were being very slow to blow the whistle. I just thought we would have exploited the free throw line, even as poor as we were shooting, a little bit more in that last quarter of the game. 2019 would obliterate this team. No one can change their mind about that. I will change. Yahari, no. Sorry, buddy. That's completely false. That is completely false. I've actually made up my mind on that. That was a conversation earlier in the year. You cannot counter what Walker Kessler and Jabari Smith do. It takes a nearly perfect game like Texas A&M just did it's not nearly perfect. A pretty dang good game to beat them at what they do really well. Devin says, I'm sorry. I'm sick of this playing crap on the road argument. Arizona lost by 16 to Colorado on the road. Even the best teams lose on the road. I'm sick of the playing crap on the road argument. What do you mean by that? I'm trying to understand. Are you just sick of people saying that? Or are you saying what exactly are you sick of on that? Big difference from road games. It's a difference in terms of the fan perspective, where we've got obviously an advantage if we're at home, and they've got a huge advantage if we're on the road. Neutral site games are different, not just from the vantage point of shooting sight lines and things like that. Basketball is a very rhythmic game. I know that sounds stupid, but if you've played basketball at a high level, you understand that. It is a very rhythmic game. And if you get out of that rhythm and aren't able to find it, case in point, 67 to 62. Doesn't matter how good you are. So this is one thing I will counter. Patriot Public. Not sure what fan you are. And, as long as you behave yourself, we'll let you hang out here. But this whole dancing on the logos thing, that's the weakest argument that you've ever made. You guys, you got to let that go. That's someone who's a fan of a team that doesn't have an argument of why they lost Auburn potentially. I don't know. Maybe you're a fan of Tennessee or Arkansas who beat us, or Florida. Well, Florida beat us, but we beat them, so that doesn't really count. But that's such a weak argument. Be better. Let's see. What I've seen from the start is that Texas A&M crowded the paint and AU shot threes, knowing they are not a good shooting team. Highly likely. based on the percentage of that. Speaking of threes, let's look at the threes. 44, excuse me, that's a field goal. We'll say field goal percentage for Texas A&M, 44%. Auburn, 30. It's 1 out of every 3 shots, but sure didn't feel like it. 50% for 3-pointers from Texas A&M. So here's the scary thing. 1 out of every 2 free throws, 3-pointers, I can't talk right now, Texas A&M makes, and they still only beat us by 5, which makes you wonder if we had gotten things going a little bit earlier, this might have been a different story. The bonus with 5 minutes left, yeah. I think Katie was 0 for 13. Well, let's look at Katie Johnson. Wow, 0 for 14, actually. 6 rebounds for him. No assist. Yeah, not his best game ever. I would venture to say this is probably one of his worst of the season just from points alone. Didn't really seem to be contributing much in that. And so remember, he's one of those things that he's one of those players that you're going to be lamenting right now as a fan. But then come tournament time, he's going to be the one, as he's done before, is the only one that will will this team to a win. Just like Wendell Green was being lamented. Why are you always shooting those? Can't do that so often. And then he put us back in the game. So you always got to remember those things. We had so few fouls when there was time to get back in this game. You're talking about that fouls on us. Yeah. So Pat says, Bruce said this team is better than 2019. I don't see it. Well, then help me understand that, Pat. Why don't you think this team is better than the 2019 team? Simply because of where they are at right now? Because the 2019 team didn't win a regular season title. It was far from it. They won an SEC tournament title. They got hot. Let's wait and see. There's a lot of Auburn fans right now that need to take a chill pill. Just breathe. And let's wait and see what happens in the tournament before we cast judgment of, oh my gosh, this team's not better than the 2019 team. You might be right, but I'm just thankful for the season that we've had so far. Let's see here. I'm going to skip down a little bit. Again, giving A&M too much credit. We could have pulled KD when he was showing he was out of control and put Zepp in. If I remember correctly, Zepp came in and drained a 3 right away. I don't know that it was right away. I think it was about like 12 minutes into the game, I think, is when he knocked it down. Zepp Jasper, 1 for 4 from 3-pointers today. Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe that is what could have made the difference. We'll never know, right? All right, Devin was trying to explain herself. I'm sick of people saying we don't play well on the road. Lots of teams lose on the road. That is an argument to say we don't do well in the tournament or that we peaked already. I mean, if it holds true, like some people have suggested that we've peaked already and we kind of sputter out in the tournament, then they'll have been right probably that we did peak too early. But I'm just willing to, hold judgment and say we haven't or we have yet. And I think that's maybe kind of what you're trying to get at too. Look at the road games over the last month. AU struggled with the most of the teams on the road. UGA, Arky, Tennessee, Florida. Even garbage teams like Georgia took AU to the wire, but we still won them. That one. And it's a great point. Just proves how deep the SEC is. I would disagree with the Georgia part of that. I don't think that's what Neil meant in any way about that. The Georgia. Oh, Georgia. Hey, y'all feel bad right now? You could be Georgia and you could be Tom Crean. I don't know who got the better end of that deal. Georgia getting rid of Tom Crean or Tom Crean getting rid of Georgia? I don't know. Steven says, as a coach, you just have to transition players out when you see they're out of control in the moment. Let them sit and get it back under control. Right. So it's easy for us to make and I get that you're a coach. I'm not trying to discredit that in any way. But it's easy for us sitting on our couches or in the stands, make that comment, and we don't know what the dynamic on the bench is at that point. Maybe he wanted to, and there wasn't another player available at that time who was ready, meaning they either gassed, hurt, or just in a funk themselves. So it's very easy for us to make those statements. This is so easy. Just take this guy out, put this guy in. Fixes the problem. It's never that easy. I think you as a coach would know that as well as anybody. And yet we still have the best record in all the SEC. So Devin, I know that you're growing new in your Auburn fandom, and this is kind of the same thing that happens all the time, and we're not unique in this, where every fan base goes through this, but it feels like Auburn does this a little bit more. We get so high and then we get so down. I just needs to breathe. It's the SEC tournament, not the NCAA tournament. And you lost to a team that is a pretty good team and is surging right now, similar to the 2019 team. You didn't lose to Georgia. You didn't lose to Vanderbilt. How about that? You could be Alabama. You could be Georgia, and you could be Alabama right now. So just put that into perspective. All right. I think I'm getting a little bit behind in chat here. Let's see here. I have to go out and scream at my goats after the game. Oh, the poor goats. Don't abuse the goats. They didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, I know you. So I had a few moments here in my house as I was watching the game where I was exclaiming loudly. And thankfully, it's the middle of the day, and there's no one here to hear me do that. Let's see here. I think the rest will help us the rest of the way. So beats like Mike. Let me take this on for a second. So that was one of the arguments we had about coming into this game. I said that it could be a detriment. I think that probably actually so far proved to be true. I think there's been plenty of rest. Rest is not the problem. I think figuring out a way to get out of the funk that we get in when we get into a shooting thing and not putting ourselves in a position where we have to mount these amazing comebacks is, and I know that's easier said than done. I'm not offering any solid solutions there. I don't know that was the problem there. Steven has the same question that I do. Are these fainting goats? Will they follow if you exclaim too loudly? That's kind of what I'm wondering, Steven. I kind of want to, listen, I was a fainting goat every time Wendell Green shot the ball, but still made it. So I'd scream and then scream the other way as I'm falling back just in thankfulness. I broke my remote. See, this is what I like. This is what I like. Auburn people, when we've had our moment, everybody have your moment and be mad for a second, but then let's joke about it a little bit, It's not the end of the world. Let's see here. What other? Okay. How about this? I think I'm caught up on most, and some of y'all are having your side conversations. I'm just going to let you continue to do that. All right. If you have a player of the game, who is it for you? Is it Jabari Smith? Is it Walker Kessler? Is it Wendell Green? Who is your player of the game? This is probably one of those times where you can have a debate. Either way, I think, again, the easy answer to this question is Jabari Smith with 17 points. However, Walker Kessler comes down the stretch. If he had made his free throws, his first two, and had been 100% today, I think he's actually the quiet player of the game. But Wendell Green, with the way he brought us back into contention in the waning minutes, that can't be discredited. So if you had a player of the game, who would it be? Wendell Green, Neil, still continuing. I'm sorry, but if I know we live not too far away from it, I'd come give you a virtual hug if I can. Just smile, buddy. It'll make it feel better. Wendell. Okay. I think, it's easy. I think Wendell's probably the easiest choice outside of points to make, because without those amazing 3-pointers he makes, we're probably not in conversation for this. It looks like most everybody agrees with that. Dusty's here. Have you been here, buddy, or have I missed you? We need to draw up better looks at the basket. Lack of scheme in the half court killed us. I disagree a little bit, Dusty. I don't know that it was a lack of scheme. I think it was the pressure of Texas A&M. And I think, and I'm not saying you're not, but we've been talking about this a lot. I don't know if you've been here the whole time. We got to give credit to Texas A&M. Buzz Williams and then had a great game plan. And we, at first, were not getting out of some of the pressure in the half court that they were doing. That quick double team, pushing us higher and higher back to half court when we're trying to get an offense set. That killed us. We eventually kind of figured it out, at least to where it wouldn't hurt us as bad. But that was so much pressure. And when you count the funk that was getting us in, our poor shooting, it just snowballs from there. Parker says we need to lift Katie up. I would agree. I think that's what you mean. Let's see. Wendell was clutch in the end, got us back in it. Got to fix the BS. Obviously, need to practice actually making shots like junior high kids in the first half. Easier said than done. You can practice all you want, but sometimes you just don't shoot well. That's the nature of shooting the ball. You can be even, Kobe Bryant, even Ray Allen, one of the best 3-point shooters out there. Trying to think of the other guy. Reggie Miller had off days. Seems like those would come a little bit more often than they should have recently. But yeah, everybody has off days. And today was definitely one of those. Massage says Auburn determines its destiny, not A&M. I don't think anybody's saying that, but we're talking about the context of this one game. No, Texas A&M determines our destiny too because of the way they play. If they play well, then we have to match that level of play, and if we don't, they win. So they do affect our destiny. Auburn, same instance. There's no it's not weak to say Texas A&M needs to be given credit here. They absolutely do. And I'm going to hold that comment. Never mind. I try to be very raw and real with you guys on here, but I always try to bring it back just a little bit. The game hurt, but maybe it'll be good for us. Plus, I keep extra remotes for this reason. Well, I'm glad you do that. Here's, I would say, we've had that discussion point, A. Robinson, about, the loss will hurt us. Well, we said that about Florida. We said that about Arkansas. We said that about Tennessee. I think we've reached the point where a loss helps us, but we were having some conversations in our previews of the SEC tournament about, maybe that one last loss does kind of push us over the edge. I think if they haven't reached that point right now where it kind of sets into reality of, hey, we're not unbeatable, then it clearly needs to be set in right now. Coach Pearl should make them run 100 laps, 500 push-ups, and yell at them. I think there will be plenty of that, Neil. Here's the great thing is they've got at least, and I'm going to push this back in. Hopefully it doesn't lose the connection. I think we're good. Yes. Sorry. Every once in a while, my equipment here gets a little out of funk. They've got, in theory, 6 days, because if they play Thursday, we don't know their seed yet. There's plenty of time to go run some laps. I would imagine that. I don't even want them to go practice threes. I want them to go practice free throws. I want them to go practice what happens when they get trapped up at the top there, way beyond the key, almost back to half court. That's what I want them to practice. I want them to practice passing the ball around. Move the ball. Don't let the defense get set in free throws. That's all I want them to work on. You do those little fundamental, everybody focuses on 3-pointers and, field goal percentage. But in the grand scheme of things, basketball usually comes down to these 3 areas. Free throws, terrible for us today. Turnovers, okay, not bad. We won that one, only 9 for us, 16 for them. And then total rebounds, we barely won that one. So there's not really a big differential there for Auburn to say, well, we won those 3 areas. We should have won the game. It was pretty even with a little bit of favoritism showed in free throws. Simple things win the games. Not necessarily free throws. They sure do help, and they sure do hurt when they're not going down. I think they need to be running stadiums. I think, like I said, I think plenty of that will be happening. Rob says, rethinking my brackets, Auburn is now in the upset category. I think anybody's in the upset category. So there used to be a time in NCAA March Madness where you always put the number 1 seed through in the first round. No more. You have to at least think about it. Those days are done. It's a reality now. Teams have caught up to each other. They're capable enough, if they're hot enough, to match those number 1 seeds. I'm thankful. Here, you want a bright side to this of us probably not being a number 1 seed? We won't have to be the second ever team to have that happen to them. It's happened a lot for 2s and 15s, but 1 and 16s, it's only happened once. So there's your silver lining. Massage Tech. Thanks. We disagree. Good coaches always say it's about what we do, not what they do. Saban and or Eagle. Well, I don't know what about Saban brought into this. Well, we can disagree, but we'll see what happens. 0-14 from a starter will lose you the game. Well, 0-14 from anybody, whether they're a starter or not, will lose you the game. If somebody's taking that amount of shots, whether they're a starter or not, and they're not making any of them, that doesn't help in any sense of the word. Life with Maine. We need picks to open up. The players also more moving without the ball. Seems like they're just standing in a spot and watching at a time. Again, I think a lot of this goes to credit to Texas A&M. Sorry, I know it's going to massage tech. I know you don't like that. But this concept of that giving a team credit somehow makes you not taking responsibility or things like that. I don't get that. It's interesting. But there was this great amount of pressure that they were putting in that trap that they were putting us on that I was very, very impressed with. And I'm glad that Bruce started to counter that, but didn't happen quick enough. And when you combine that with our poor shooting, it really, really, really hurt us tonight. And I don't want this to be misheard. Auburn ultimately lost the game for itself tonight. If they don't put themselves in this situation where they have to have Wendell Green make three or four amazing shots in a row, we're talking about who we're playing tomorrow. We're ready to watch the Arkansas LSU game and see who our opponent is. And now Texas A&M gets that. So I'll be rooting for Texas A&M because I was very impressed with what they did in this game. I fear that we may remain a number one seed because Baylor loss was worse than our loss. I think there's been enough. Now, let's be clear here. The people that make the decisions on brackets and rankings are much different. So it's hard to make that assessment fairly and say that because of A, B is going to happen because they're not really related. I'm sure there's some influence there, but it's really going to come down to what they consider based on the few other teams that have a contention for a number one seed, who's better overall, who has the resume. I don't know that I think Auburn's lack of ability to win on the road in the latter part of the season, especially with this performance in the tournament, is really going to weigh heavily on the minds of the people making the decision for the seeding and for the bracket. And I think that's probably what's going to push us to the number 2 seed, which there's some silver lining to that if you want to find it. Getting ready for the winter storm. It will stay safe. By the way, yes, reminder, everybody stay safe tonight, whether you eat the winter stuff or you get the just regular storm stuff. Everybody be careful tonight. So one good thing is tomorrow you have all the time in the world, Auburn fans. You can just sit back and relax and watch the rest of the SEC tournament and wonder about what could have been if you want to. I mean, I will tune into it, but I won't be making an appointment television like I would have if Auburn was still in it. I think that Kentucky-Tennessee game is still going to be an amazing watch. And I think with Auburn out of the way, if Texas A&M continues the streak that they're on right now, they could certainly find themselves in the championship game. But it kind of feels like at this moment we're heading towards an Arkansas-Kentucky matchup, in my opinion, with a Kentucky title. At the end of the day, Auburn has to make shots consistently and win. Well, yeah. I don't disagree with that in the least. All right, we talked a little bit about stats here. We'll kind of get towards the end of our stream here, but keep your comments and questions coming. We talked a little bit about Katie, Jabari. Zepp had a decent game today, 7 points. Don't want that to go missed compared to what he normally does. He doesn't score a whole lot of points for us as a starter. But he had some pretty good moments in this one. Kessler had a quiet, good game, one shy of a double-double. Flanagan, I thought, showed flashes in this game of what he's capable of, but they were so interspersed and few and far between. But I thought I saw in him that moment, that light starting to click, and I started to ask the question, is he going to become that D'Angelo Purifoy story that we had in 2019? I don't know, but I liked some things I saw, still making some mistakes and things like that, but I liked what I saw overall out of Allen today, doing a little bit better overall. Jalen Williams had 2 points and Wendell Green had 15. That's all your bench points right there. So we've got to get something out of Cambridge. We got to get something out of Cardwell. Bench points, 17 for Auburn, only 6 for Texas A&M. So we won that battle, but it's got to be a little bit better. It should be an attorney, Kyle. You'd be great at cross exam. I hope you mean that. I think you do. In seriousness, but my wife's actually told me that. She's like, you just love to argue. I always try to express it this way. I just like having conversations. And if I just sit here and go, oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. Well, that's pretty boring, right? I know I want to generate a conversation. The way my brain is fixed to work is to hear something and then immediately think, okay, what's the opposite of that? Is there a point to it? If there's not, then I can agree. If there's not, that's why I think about that. So my wife says that to me in a joking way. So maybe you mean a little bit of that too. Let's see. Steven, I think being the best 2 seed is a better bracket than the last 1 seed. Last 1 seed bracket could get littered with SEC teams, which would likely not bode well for us. We need fresh blood. Well, there was a lot of people wanting to have those revenge games. Excuse me, I knocked the table around here. Those revenge games, and we see how well that went. So you might have a point there. All right, good. Looks like we got a lot of people checking out. All right, take last-minute comments, questions, derogatory rebuttals. Get them in right now. A couple reminders for you. Check out links in the descriptions for ways that you can help support our content here. We are mainly listener-supported, so thank you so much to many of our Booster Club members, but I'm sharing about our channel membership program. All you got to do is hit the join button for $1 a month. You can help produce this content, keep the lights on, help us buy new equipment, all that kind of stuff. You get little icons next to your name. You've seen a lot of people here today with those next to them, little Tumor's Corner toilet papers. And then you can get access to the emojis. I know there were not many emoji usings in this game, but they are there for you if you are a channel member and want to use that. Reminder as well, if you are a channel member, you now have access to our bracket challenge, which we'll be announcing for the general public very soon. But go check out. There's a post earlier today there on YouTube. It's just like a written post with a link and a password. You can get in early right now to our bracket challenge. There's already people signing up in there, so don't miss your opportunity. You now have the open window to come in there if you'd like to. Only 3 of the last 10 national champions have won their conference tournament. Yes, I found that on Twitter, and yes, I'm trying to inject some positivity in this chat. Thank you. I appreciate that. It is hard sometimes to inject positivity to an appropriate level without becoming Pollyanna sunshine pumper, as people like to accuse you of, but also, I hope that you guys understand what I try to do when I'm kind of countering things. It's not that I'm trying to be rude or be argumentative. I'm just trying to give you actually something other than regurgitated echo chamber type of stuff, which happens commonly, whether it's good or bad. That's the way I choose to operate with myself, and that's how I keep myself from throwing remotes and yelling at fainting goats, which was hilarious. Thank you guys for that one. That was a much needed laugh on a very, very sad day. Yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up. The other thing I would counter to, Devin, is they even said on the broadcast, no national champion has won when they lost in the quarterfinals of their conference tournament. So if you look at stats, if you look at history, there's not a lot boding well for Auburn. But one of the things that we do well as Auburn Tigers is when no one expects us to do anything. We sure do shock the world. We've done a lot this year, so people at least expect something of us. But yeah, thank you. I thought you meant that as a compliment, and I will take that compliment. Maybe I missed my calling in life. I think I would be too bored talking about law. No offense to the lawyers out there, but to me, that just is not my cup of tea. But anyway, all right, guys, thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate that. Whether you agreed or disagree with my takes and others' takes, I appreciate you being here and being part of the conversation, being in the chat. Please, as you're leaving, do make sure you smash that like button. If you haven't, please subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our uploads or live streams. We'll be doing a bracket preview Make sure you stay subscribed and pay attention to that when that comes out. Probably a preview of the basketball game that Auburn will have in the NEAT tournament as well. So hope you guys have a great weekend. Stay warm, stay safe, smile, because I promise it'll get better. Until then, my friends, War Eagle.